What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, March 27th, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil. Phil, we are just 8 days away from baseball back in action on April 4th. I know we started that countdown last show, but next week on this Monday show, we will be ready to be talking about Buffalo Bison's baseball, hopefully. They're a little quicker on the trigger this year than they have been the past two seasons, but we're probably going to delay everything till our Friday show to start talking Buffalo Bisons because they always put stuff out the day our episode comes out.
Yeah, they like to put stuff out, and not only that, like you kind of mentioned, they don't finalize the rosters, which is a little strange to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it that they get to wait until the last second because that's just kind of how baseball works, but it's not helpful for us that they wait until the very last second for us to really understand who's on the team. I know you had quite the issue last season, which I wish you would have again, but it sounds like you've learned from your mistake, and for the show's sake, we're going to wait that little bit extra time so we actually understand who's going to be on the team and who might not ever play baseball again that PK might draft just in case they do.
Yeah, gosh dang it. But yeah, I've been trying to keep better track of the players that they're sending down and the players that are still up with the big league club and all that kind of stuff on, yes, the spreadsheets. But I think we will have a better grasp of the team going in. And I think this season we're going to put more focus on the actual prospects and the players that might have a chance up into the big league club and just really focus on that a bit more than we have done it in years past. But if you want to continue with that and follow along with our coverage, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com and check for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Phil, what a weekend it was for Buffalo sports. Man, we'll start with the Buffalo Bandits start. They somehow always find a way to make it super stressful, super exciting, and super interesting. They won it versus the number one team out in the West, the Seals, 7-6. Yes, I'm not forgetting a number one in front of those numbers. 7-6 in overtime. Byrne had 3. Kluch, McCulley, Priolo, and Smith each added 1 themselves. Vince, 49 saves. Shots per 55-44 in favor of the Seals. Adler, 12 of 17 in the faceoff dot, and the power plays were 4 each, 4 sides, for both sides, I should say. Buffalo came out 2-4, and the Seals 1-4.
I think that might, I don't know, there's actually a lot of talking points with this game, and I don't really know where to start other than the fact that the Bandits once again just find a way to win somehow, even in a game that I don't know if we've mispredicted one this badly in a long time. Yeah. And I don't know if anyone really could have predicted a 7-6 overtime barn burner between the top 2 teams in the entire league from the East and the West, and both with incredible top 4 offenses and one that was number 1 in the entire league. And yet 7-6, I don't know. I don't know who could have predicted that. But I mean, the biggest thing about this game was once again the Bandits found a way to win. I mean, the whole game was kind of just gross. It was a lot of defense, a lot of big saves, which is fun and can be kind of exciting in its own right, but I would have much rather seen exactly what you kind of mentioned, not really on purpose, but I would have seen a 17-16 overtime victory would have been a little bit more exciting for the top 2 teams. 7-6 is not what I was hoping for, but the big thing is they got the win. They found a way to win, and even if it was a little bit ugly of a game on both sides, it was still a good victory and one that we will absolutely take.
Yeah, I mean, the second quarter was the main issue for them again, and even then, they only allowed 3 goals. It was 3-1 at halftime. If you had that on your bingo card, you'd be a millionaire. It was unbelievable how dysfunctional the offense looked for the Buffalo Bandits. There was missed shots all over the place. They just were dropping passes. It seemed like it was like I know I've referenced this game multiple times on this show, that it's felt like the Albany game all over again, where it's just the offense was out of sync. They couldn't get anything going. They were getting inside, which was different than the Colorado game, where they were getting up and close. They were getting in front of Scigliano. I'm still going to call him that way. I'm still going to pronounce the G because I don't care. I think the announcers are saying it wrong because it sounds weird not pronouncing the G in his name. But it was definitely, like you said, a defensive battle. Both goaltenders were coming out hot. This was the bounce back game that you were expecting from Matt Vince, who almost never has back-to-back bad performances, and allowing 6 goals versus the number 1 scoring offense in the entire league, not just the East, not just the West, but the entire league, is a credit to them. Traveling West Coast, I think that you definitely saw some wear and tear from both teams having to travel that much, including San Diego, who had to travel back from Texas the night before in a hard battle from the Panther City Lacrosse Club. But it was definitely a defensive-minded game with some offense sprinkled in on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you just mentioned, San Diego was able to put 17 up on Panther City, and Panther City this year is not a joke of a team. They're quite good, and they're obviously pushing for playoffs themselves, so that was a really big game for both teams. The Seals wanting to take both games this weekend and clinch their own playoff ticket, but I mean, Panther City is having an incredible second season, and they're a good team, so for the Seals to be able to put up 17 on them, I mean, it just kind of shows what their offense can do, and even in this game, you can say that they were a little bit off for the Seals themselves, but at the same time, they put up a lot of shots. They still had 55 shots. It's not like they were exhausted, only put up 30 shots and only scored 6 times. They put up 55 shots. Vince, 49 saves is an incredible performance. So their offense had opportunities. I think the big number to me that stands out that we kind of mentioned in the preview is they're 1 for 4 on the power play. I mean, we kind of talked about it early as we were watching the game and seeing Buffalo very quickly take a couple of penalties. We were like, oh, this is not a team you want to do that for. But the power penalty kill, being able to hold the Seals to just 25%, I mean, that literally is pretty much the game, with Buffalo scoring 2 of 4, Seals 1 of 4, and then you win by 1 goal in overtime. I mean, had the Seals been able to go 3 of 4, that might have been the entire game right there. So the penalty kill was a massive, massive victory for the Bandits in this game.
Yeah, I mean, 2 of the 4 penalties that were called were illegal substitutions on the bench. And to me, that is unacceptable because those are self-inflicted wounds. They're not like you're leaving it up to the referees. Is this a cross-checking? Is this a slashing? Is this a holding the stick? Whatever it's called. Illegal substitution is something that you can physically control. So I think that is on not just the coaching, but the players, the people that are holding the doors open and letting them go. I think that needs to be revisited because 2 in 1 game and 2 in 1 half just can't happen moving forward. We said that on the show where you cannot give the Seals chances on the power play. And good thing is they only cost them once, and that's what got the scoring going in the second quarter for San Diego. But I think the second half, no penalties whatsoever called on them. I think the one penalty call that was called on San Diego in the fourth quarter could have definitely came back to haunt them. And I would hold no ill will towards them complaining and nonstop if Buffalo would have scored on that power play, and that was then the goal that put them ahead and good for the win, because that was a horrible, horrible call, Phil. I mean, we come on here, we try to be as fair as we can. We'll call it out when we can. But my God, I don't know what the ref was watching when he called that call on Berg, because he had every right to be angry. I would have laughed even harder if he would have gotten an extra 2 for, chastising the ref. But that was a horrible, horrible call.
I think it's one of those things where you see the second man. So it depends on when the ref looked over. If the ref looks over and all he sees is Berg shoving the other player and the Bandit player goes down, then from what he can see, that's a penalty. From the replay and what everyone else could see, stepping away from the cameras and having that, eagle eye view that you can actually see everything, clearly it wasn't a penalty. The Bandits player pushed Berg into the other Bandits player, and obviously it wasn't a penalty. But if the ref is either blinded by the first Bandit player or only just looks over and sees Berg shove the Bandit player to the ground, then from his point of view, I can see how it's a penalty. I understand, like you said, Berg's, frustration and being extremely upset because he was shoved down and possibly deserved a penalty of his own as far as the Bandit player who should hit him. So, I mean, I get the frustration, but I mean, it's one of those things where the second man in can sometimes be the only one who gets the call. And if that's what the ref saw at that moment, that's what the call was. But again, from the replay, obviously it was not a penalty, but the Bands didn't do anything with it. So luckily, I mean, in a weird way, luckily that was not the game-winning goal, because it would have been a little bit awkward and definitely good fortune for the Bandits. But either way, that late in the game, it put the Seals at a disadvantage being on the penalty kills. So, I mean, it still helped the Bandits for 2 minutes toward the end of the game, even if they didn't score on it. So, I mean, I'll take it for some of the calls that we've seen go against the Bandits, but it was questionable at best.
Yeah, and a good thing there wasn't a makeup call after the refs saw that and go, okay, we gave one to the Bandits here. Now we got to give one to the Seals moving forward. But I also just put it out there, Banditland, you do get calls every once in a while. It's not the league. This is proof the league's not out to get you. So can we just put that to bed finally? I know it won't happen, but just, wishful thinking. But the big issue I have besides the offense, which we can go out and talk about in a bit, because the defense and the goaltending has carried this team the last 4 games. It's been unbelievable what Matt Vince and the defense in front of him has been able to do while the offense has been struggling, even though they're getting players back. And, that's what we talked about in the last show. But the end of the game was the big issue that I had for me was Spanger got the ball back with around 8 seconds left. Now, originally I was thinking, okay, they're just going to wait to call a timeout until he crosses half, so that way you're over half and you don't have to do that stupid little sprint or pass quick over the line to try to get a shot here. But then he passed it over to Nick Weiss. It looked like there was almost a 2-on-2 or a 2-on-1 for the Buffalo Bandits' favor. But then Weiss kind of did a circle back and then called a timeout. I don't understand what the thought process there was between Spanger, Weiss, and JT, because it seemed like it was very dysfunctional at the end of the 8 seconds there. And again, they won it in overtime. There's only so much you can critique. They got the win. Win's great. Move on, move forward. But you still got to break down the game. I think that is another thing with like the illegal substitutions on the bench. It just seemed like they were not unprepared to play. It seemed like there was lapse in judgment or lapse in something in that game where it just didn't feel like a typical Johnny Tavares Buffalo Bandits playing style that whole game. It just felt something was off that whole time. I don't know if it was the trip out west. I don't know if it was the nice weather. I have no idea what it was, but it just everything's felt a bit off that game. Again, they got the win. They withstood everything that was out there, including a Chase Frazier injury and warm-ups. Hopefully it was just, something tightened up or something like that, where it's not just re-injury. God, let's hope not. But it just felt like something just wasn't clicking that whole game for me.
I was going to mention it's probably the West Coast and nice weather that they don't get to
play
in all that often, but you already kind of mentioned. I mean, even seeing them warm up outside, I feel like they must have been loving trying to just shooting around outdoors in some really nice weather compared to what we're dealing with over here in the wonderful world of spring Buffalo. But for that last play, I think that's exactly how you described it, is not to give them any excuses. It was obviously botched either way you look at it, but I think that's kind of what happened. Was they seemed like they might have had a 2-on-1, and if you're Johnny, you kind of got to let the players, would assume, take it upon themselves. Like, hey, if you think you have an opportunity in this situation, go get it. Go get the win. I'm not going to call a timeout while you're in the middle of a play that you think you might have a scoring opportunity for. But then, like you said, they went for it, but then stopped and didn't go for it and then called the timeout. And I think that's kind of just a lapse in judgment on the player. I think either you go for it all and you take that 2-on-1 opportunity and you just kind of, it is what it is, or you have to pull up immediately and say, okay, I'm just going to turn this over to my offense and let them call a timeout. But they literally got caught right in between two ideas, like you said, and that I think is kind of what happened. I don't think it's really on JT. I would assume in that situation, you kind of just want to let the player handle it, and whatever he's feeling in that moment, if he wants to go out and think he has a great 2-on-1 break. I mean, imagine if you call that timeout and all of a sudden your player's like, hey, we could have scored on that. What are you doing? Like, why are you cutting me off in the middle of a transition play? So for the coach, I think I would also kind of step back and let the player handle it, but I think Weiss got caught in between. Was it Spanger or Weiss?
It was Spanger that passed it over to Weiss.
Okay. Both of them, I think, got just caught in the middle of the idea. And then all of a sudden, like you said, 8 seconds goes down to 2, you call your timeout, and there's absolutely nothing you're doing with just 2 seconds. So I don't know. It was definitely botched, and like you said, the whole game was a little weird. The offense is, my goodness, I really don't want to say it's concerning, but it's really starting to concern me. And it's frustrating to say because they have an incredible offense and there's so much talent there. And I know they're missing players. And for the longest time, the left side is what had all the injuries. Now the right side, after having Fraser back for one game, now he's out again for who knows how long. Nanticoke still hasn't been back in quite a bit. So now your right side's hurting a little bit, especially to kind of try to have to mix it up right in warm-ups when you're kind of game planning to have Fraser in there and then someone else steps in. But we've been without Fraser all season, so I don't know what the issue is, especially against teams like the Seals who don't have a great defense, haven't had great goaltending this whole season so far. I mean, they're not bad, but they're not good. I think they're ranked 10th in goals against average, and you're putting up 7 goals. So, I mean, the offense is absolutely starting to get a little bit concerning. I mean, there were 1 or 2 times, I think, that they're right back to that unselfish attitude, and it's too unselfish. I mean, there was a time, and I'm not really going to question the player himself in most situations, but there was a time that Dane got himself into the middle by making an incredible move. He was a good, few feet from the net, right in the middle of the goal, and instead he passes it way back outside, and a shot wasn't even taken. Like, it's those situations where I think they're just being too unselfish again, and we saw this a little bit last season when you just had so many weapons on offense. No one really wants to take that shot. They're looking for the perfect play, that perfect pass, trying to set everybody else up and not themselves. And I think in some situations, they're just going to have to get a little bit more selfish. I think Dane ended up with the most amount of shots for the Bandits. I think it was around 11. Everyone else, once again, single digits. So I don't know. The offense is definitely off. I know it's going to take them a little bit of time to gel with all the new players coming back from injury, but they need to fix it sooner than later, especially with the talent that they have. They just should not be being held to this low of a score.
Yeah, you are correct. Dane Smith had 11, Byrne had 8, and then Kluch and McKay both had 6. Everybody else was 3 or under. So yeah, you were right on that. But I think that is my biggest concern. And again, you're 3-1 in this 4-game stretch where the offense has kind of gone into a shell, if you want to call it, since the Halifax back-to-back weeks. That's my biggest concern right now as well. And again, you're 11-3. You got 4 games left in the season, 2 of them versus Toronto. You got New York and Albany sprinkled in there as well. So you got a top defense twice moving forward versus Toronto. The best defense in the league, one of the best goaltenders in the entire league as well. So you've definitely been able to, again, I go back to that quote where Ian McKay said, hey, we didn't face adversity last year. We're facing adversity now. You're 11-3, leading the East, best team in the NLL right now. You have the tiebreaker over the top team in the West. You have the tiebreaker over Rochester and Halifax and Philly. You're going to try, if you win next week, you got the tiebreaker over Toronto. You're sitting in a great place. But there's still issues going forward where you're winning in spite of the concerns that we have. In the last 4 games, they've scored 10 or less goals in every single one of them. This is a team that last year had, 14 goals a game, including this season where they had over 13 goals a game. It's kind of slipped now. In the last 4 games, they're averaging 8.75 goals for and 9.5 against. When you're averaging less than 10 goals a game, you shouldn't be averaging less than that goals for. They're doing amazing things. They're winning in spite of what the concerns are from us, but they got to get it going. They got to get this gelling better. Byrne's still getting all his. Dane's still getting all his. It's just, I don't understand, like you said, with all the talent that is on that offensive end and how long they've been together, I don't understand why it's taking so long to gel. I mean, back-to-back weeks, they've probably missed the net as many times as they've hit the net. And that's very, very concerning where, you can correct that kind of stuff. You can get it back in. I can't explain what's going on with this offense. All I can say is thank God they have Matt Vince and that defense stepping up because how often do you win a 7-6 game against the top scoring team in the league? It's rarely ever. I think this is and I think Dave Buchanan tweeted this out. It's the lowest goals for win in Buffalo Bandits history. And that might be one of the lowest goals for win in NLL history. We would have to look that up, but the offense is a bit concerning for me.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is that they continue to find a way to win, and I mean, that's kind of the theme of this year, and kind of just the thing that a championship type team or a high playoff caliber type team will do is, in spite of whatever adversity you're facing, you will find a way to win, even if it means holding the number one offensive team to 6 goals and you putting up 7 in OT with Priolo's 3rd goal of the entire season, captain on that incredible transition run, and he had one heck of a game. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the offense's issue is, and again, it's a light concern, I think, because we know they have it in them. We know, I mean, like you said, I mean, last year they were averaging 13, 14 goals. This is the same talented group. We know it's there. We know that they can do it. It's just a matter of putting it together, and it's just concerning that it's taking this long to, like you said, for these guys to gel who know each other extremely well, play together all the time. I understand they were off for quite a bit from injury, and it takes a little bit to get that back, but they just got to really start flowing and clicking sooner than later. I mean, 4 games left before playoffs sounds like enough to fine-tune, but like you said, 2 of those are against one of the best defenses in the entire league, so it's going to be a very good where are we type situation to kind of see where your offense really is. I mean, this was another one, but really didn't think the Seals would be able to hold a talented Bandits group to just 7. So, I mean, that is concerning, and when they play Toronto, it's going to be concerning all over again. But I mean, it just takes that one game, I mean, it just takes that one high-scoring game to get your team back in it, and even if you go in against Toronto and you win, 12-11, 13-12, if the offense has a better night than the defense, that's fine, and that's the kind of game you're hoping for, and just don't want these sub-10 games anymore. I mean, not only are they terrifying and tough to watch, but I'd really just want that offense to get going and start clicking.
5-2 when they were trailing at half, Phil. It's a pretty huge credit to the team just going in, righting the ship, figuring out, moving forward, because like we said, their 3rd quarter is the best. The 2nd quarter is the worst. So if you can try to adjust that 2nd quarter again, they got outscored 3-0 in this one, which isn't horrible, but again, you had 1 goal at half. That's horrible. Unacceptable. Yeah, but I mean, you outscored them 6-3 in the second half. So that's great. So it's a tale of both sides of this. It's a bit. It was just a weird game overall. Like I said, it just didn't feel even Bandits-esque.
Neither side really felt. Just felt like even the intensity was. I mean, it was there at times, but I expected this game to be a little bit more of a heavyweight battle with just even chippiness and fighting, and the teams were just kind of there. I mean, there was a little bit of it here and there, and there was definitely some anger when that Priolo goal game went in. I don't know if it was Weiss or somebody else who was standing next to a Seals player as Priolo scored and just kind of like yelled at him quite a bit as he was pumped up that the Bandits won. So I'm not saying that the intensity wasn't there, but just felt a little bit flatter of a game than you would have expected. I mean, that Colorado Bandits game, despite the score, was incredibly intense the entire game, and this one was just a little bit less so, and just I think we just expected a bigger, larger, more intense number ones in the entire league kind of game, and it was a 7-6 OT victory. So I mean, we'll take it, and it was just a weird game, but you got the win, and that's all we can ask for. Another
weird way to win and add it to your lead, which is 11 games won now. It's just this team that's been decimated by injuries, finding different ways to win. Their back end is playing unbelievable. Matt Vince, another goaltender of the year performance this year. It's just everything's coming together. It's just the one piece that I didn't think we would have to worry about all season in week, what is this going to be, 18 in the 15th game of the season for the Buffalo Bandits, is the offense. And that's something I never thought I would have to say. But again, next week, biggest game of their season, I would call it. If they win it, you got that tiebreaker over Toronto. You got a game and a half, or probably 2 games, if I do the math right, 2 games lead over Toronto with 3 games to go. That's the biggest. It's as of now, if they lose it, I mean, I don't even want to talk about it, but if they lose that game, the final matchup versus Toronto will be the biggest game of the year. But this will be, next week, is the biggest game on their schedule as of yet. That if they can take them down, you're pretty much, you have everything in your hands to make your way to be the number one seed in the NLL once again this season, and the championship will once again run through Bandit land. But Phil, if there's nothing else you want to add to this one, we'll go to the BSC update. I am up 2124.55 to 1863.72. I am very, very quickly approaching the 300-point lead, but I put up 24 and a half. You put up 18 and a half, even though we were both missing a player.
Yeah, I mean, it was a dud. Real dud of a game. The real down game. And Evan Priolo pretty much was arguably the best player out there. I mean, Byrne definitely helped with his little hattie that he snuck in there. I mean, I don't think we gave him enough credit for his hat trick because everyone else only got one goal. So, I mean, you did say Byrne got his, but I mean, congrats to Byrne for the hat trick and continuing to find incredible ways to score. And obviously he's on your team, so that was a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, those 3.5 games that he missed, he would be up there for the goaltending lead. He would be, or goal scoring lead. He's already got 70 points in 11 to probably 10.5 games because he didn't play that second half versus New York, I think it was. But just think where he would be if he didn't miss those 3.5 games. He would be up there with Dane Smith with number wise. It's a disappointment that part of a season was cut short, but you got 4 more games to just light it up. And Jeff Teat, slow down, buddy. He only had 7, so he did slow down a bit.
He did slow down, but so did the Bandits.
That is true. Yeah, this was the game that we thought he was going to make a comeback. Everything was there except for the goal scoring. But we'll move on to the milestones here. A few of them happened. A few of them you're going to hear again next week because they didn't happen. But Dane Smith, he was only 2 points away. He now crossed the century mark for the 6th time, 4th straight time, and 6 of the last 7 times. Just unbelievable what he has been able to accomplish in his career, and he's only 30, so he's got quite a while ways to go. Steve Priolo, 2 caused turnovers, so he now claims and has 4th place all-time in NLL history. He officially passed Chris Corbeil. He was tied with him going into this one, and he officially has 4th all to himself. Max Adler, he won 12 faceoffs, so that definitely means he passed Darius Kilgore for 6th all-time in Buffalo Bandits history. Unbelievable in less than 2 years to move all the way up there. JT, he is now tied with Troy Cordingley for 2nd place in wins for Buffalo Bandits coaching history and for the points for Dane Smith. He had 5 of them, right, Phil? Let me look at this.
He had 1 goal, 4 assists.
Yes, 5 points, so he is up to 103, and I just minimized this, so this is going great. He is now tied for 8th place in single-season Buffalo Bandits history with most points. I believe he is still on pace to break his own record, but it's pretty much even now. He can't get less than 7.5 points per game the rest of the way. So Toronto has found a way to
have a huge game.
Yeah, big time. We need the offense to figure it out very quickly. But some big milestones happen, and some bigger ones might be happening next show because players did a little bit, but they didn't go all the way to what they needed.
I think the 2 big ones on this kind of milestone watch was Max Adler, like you mentioned. I mean, he got it. He's already 6 now. And I mean, Darius Kilgore, all-time passing somebody when it's only, a season and a half? 2 seasons?
Yes.
Season and a half, pretty much?
Close to 2 seasons, yeah.
Is pretty insane. And then JT tying 2nd in the Bandits coaching history. I mean, he also has not been coaching all that long. So pretty incredible to have those 2 guys who are, newer to their spots, just climbing extremely high in Bandits coaching history and Bandits player history for faceoffs.
So we will go over the playoff watch that we started last show. Toronto was in Albany, and they took care of business 11-9. Halifax was in Philly. They took care of business 14-10. Georgia traveled to New York. Georgia won 13-8. And then Rochester went to Vegas, gambled a bit, and lost it all. They lost 12-7. So the current standings in the East look like Buffalo is in first, 11-3. 2nd place is the Rock, 11-4. Again, those 2 teams match up next week in the biggest game of the season so far. Rochester lost, so they're in 3rd place, 9-5. Halifax moved up to 500, 7-7 in 4th place. In your wild card team currently is Colorado at 6-7. So they will be moving over to they're already in the West. They'll stay in the West and face the number 1 seed over there if that finishes. Philly is in second place in the wild card race there at 6-8.
I don't really. The end of the season is going to be insane with some of these playoff and the wild card.
We knew that going in, seeing Toronto twice, though.
I don't know. Like, would you want, if Buffalo's able to get first, would you want Halifax to just climb and somehow take third and face Rochester instead, or hope an East wild card like Philly gets it? I don't know. I don't feel.
Ask me in 3 weeks.
Right. I just don't feel great with a lot of these sneaking in playoff teams that are pretty much elite. I mean, Halifax, I know they're 7-7, but they're a really good team, and not one I would love to start in a one-and-done situation with. I mean, even Colorado, I know they'd play in the West, but still also a little bit scary. I don't know. I don't like how it's shaping up, but Buffalo has to take care of themselves first.
We did say this in the offseason as well, that the East just they're the beast of the East now. It's just everybody got better, even in the midseason. Mitch Jones went to Philly. What the heck? Like last year, we were going, all right, I really want Albany. I know they got Benny and Rezateris, but beyond that, they don't have much. I really want Albany. And then they got Albany, and they took care of business in the first round. Now it's like 1 through 5. All of them are threats. Well, in a 1-game series,
right? That's
you
the
can
big
lose.
thing to start with a one and done is the issue. I mean, if it was all 3-game sets, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable. Like, all right, screw up once in a close game, whatever. You're probably going to win 2 of 3 against a inferior team, hopefully. But one and done. I mean, anything can happen. You could win 7-6 overtime against the Seals. I mean, it's just one and done's not a comfortable feeling. I mean, in Banditland, it'll be a little more comfortable, but still not great.
Not great. And on our next show, we will preview the biggest game of the season so far, Bandits at Rock. It's gonna be a good one. Make sure you are in your seats for when that game kicks off, because you will not want to miss a second of it. So, Phil, we'll move on to the Buffalo Sabres here. It's going to be a change of tone, and I'm going to be eating my words a bit here. But back-to-back victories. Unbelievable performance by the Buffalo Sabres. Friday, 5-4 victory over the Devils. Cousins, Tage, Quinn, and Tuck had 2 of them. They were the goal scorers. UPL 27-31 save. Shots were 31-26 in favor of the Devils. And then flash forward to Saturday versus the Islanders. They won 2-0. Yeah, Okposo scored his 10th, and then Skinner finished with an empty netter to finish it off, the 2-0 victory. Comrie, 26 of 26 saves. Great shutout by him in his return from injury. Shots were 35-26 in favor of Buffalo, and their record sits at 35-31-6. Phil, take it away before I have to eat my own words.
Yeah, sure, I can do it. The Devils game was a fun one to watch. Great to see them get up really early. Started to slip away a little bit, but they were able to hold on, which is huge for this team. It doesn't often happen. They do like getting up early and then losing it and then barely holding on. Seems to be their MO this season, but really fun to watch a lot of these players. I mean, Tage, we haven't seen him have a goal like that in a long time, I don't think. And it was just something we saw that we got really used to early in the season. It was something he was doing pretty much on a game-by-game basis. But to see him win a puck that was free, burned by the defender, making an absolutely incredible move, it was just, again, what we got so used to seeing early in the season. It was great to see him get one like that. Cousins, Quinn, and Peterka all looking really good. I'm really excited to see the development of Quinn and Peterka as they continue to grow. They just are playing better and better. I mean, Quinn with 14 already, his goal was quite solid. His pass over to Cousins, and Cousins with that ridiculous, seemingly easy, but really great NHL video game type move to burn the goaltender on his backhand. And then Tuck just continues to prove what he means to this team and what he means to being back in the lineup. I mean, his 2 goals were incredible. And again, it's something you were missing for so long while he was injured. So to have that back is clearly making a difference for this team.
I'm still going to be a little frustrated here, Phil. They've won, besides that New Jersey game, going into that one, they had won 2 of the last 12 games. And then you turn in this back-to-back performance. Where was this 12 games ago, Phil? Like, this is what's frustrating is a team like this, because they're so skilled. They're so talented. They have such young pieces that are growing into such huge roles for this team. And then they just put up a dud the last 12 games. And then they come into the Devils, who are a guaranteed playoff team, and they just run them out of the house in the first and second period, where, yes, the Devils came back. They cut it to 5-4. He withstood the last 10 minutes. It was a huge performance by them. But then it's just, Phil, where was this 12 games ago? That's what's so frustrating about this, because they were so stinking close to breaking that playoff drought. And yes, they're still alive. They're 6 games out. They got a game in hand over Pittsburgh, I think it is. 2 games in hand over New York Islanders. So they're not dead and buried. They got, 6% chance to make the playoffs. But where was this so long ago? Like, I understand Tuck was hurt. I understand he's coming back. But that's what's frustrating is you were able to capitalize on this in front of you. Again, maybe it's because they were wearing the goat head. Maybe that's the reason behind this. That's the only explanation I have. They came out of nowhere, this type of game. I was fully ready to come on here and another, 6-2 loss. I was fully ready for that. I was not ready for a 5-4 victory. I wasn't ready for a 2-0 victory. So I'm kind of eating my words, but I understand. We've said it so long now. We're not expecting this team to make the playoffs. We were never expecting this team to make the playoffs. We just wanted to be in the race the whole time, and I think they are that. But games 60-70, it was so frustrating because you knew what they were capable of, and they just showed it on Friday night.
I mean, this is what you were asking for. I mean,
this is what I was asking for.
We knew for the most part at this point, even with their lovely 6% chance, they're hanging on by a very loose thread, but they're hanging on. But I mean, which is how they've been playing recently. You kind of asked, get some wins, show that this, you are that team that we thought you were, that you can build on into next season. Don't just kind of let this season die out in misery and just kind of limp to the end. Go out and show that you have some fight in you, that you can win against some really good teams like the Devils, like the Islanders, who just recently beat you. I mean, it was exciting to watch. It was fun to watch. It gives you a smidgen of playoff hope. But like you said, I mean, where was this a few games ago? And this is exactly the kind of thing that everybody knew, that they couldn't have a bad stretch this late in the season. And that's exactly what they ended up going on. And now you're in a situation where you possibly could have had a pretty solid chance of making playoffs. And now you're barely hanging in, but you are hanging in. And like you said, it's the thing that Buffalo loves to do, which is get their fans really hopeful about something, and then it all comes crashing down. And like you said, I mean, we weren't expecting this team to make playoffs, but you open that door even a little bit after 11 years, and we're absolutely going to just shove that door open with all the hope we possibly can and wait for our hearts to be crushed. But it was just really exciting to see them get back to playing the style of hockey that we know they can. I mean, a really exciting, high-scoring 5-4 win against the Devils, and then beating the Islanders at their own game, and Comrie getting an incredible shutout in that Islanders game. I mean, it was just a really good revenge style type game against the Islanders.
Yeah, and that Islanders game where you knew exactly the style they played. They like to grind it out. They wait for you to make a mistake, and then they capitalize. Well, that's what the Sabres did right back to them. It wasn't a high-scoring game. This is one of those times where the Sabres proved, hey, we can win a game where we don't put up 4 goals. Because I gave that stat. They were, 5-25 or 24 and something like 3. Yeah, not good. Not good when they don't put up 4 goals. Well, Comrie came in, he settled it down, he got the shutout. Okposo's capitalized when they had to, and then Skinner capped off with the empty netter. So it was really like a 0-0 game going into the third period. It's back-to-back gutsy victories against teams that are higher than you in the standings. When it comes down to it, you have to beat the teams that are behind you and try to capitalize on the opportunities that are presented with the teams ahead of you. And they did that in back-to-back games. That's why it's so frustrating to see back-to-back games like this happen. And then the 12 games before that, you did that. It's just, I know they're growing pains, and I understand that this team is still the youngest team in the NHL. They're growing, they're learning, but it's just amazing what happens when you get a goaltender that doesn't allow in 4 goals, and you have to put up 4 or 5 goals every night. It's just, it's nice going back there and seeing a goaltender, which I've given Comrie a bunch of crap all season because I don't think he has performed what he can be, but it's amazing what can happen when you have a goaltender back there that can make the saves needed, bail you out when you need to, and put up a shutout. I think, is this the second shutout of the year, I think?
I was going to ask if it was the first, so. Oh, no, Anderson had his bajillion
right. Yes,
save.
Anderson, yep.
Shutout. So, yes, I believe it's the second shutout all season. A little bit different, differently done. I thought the Islanders game like you said, they definitely beat them at their own game. I thought the Sabres outplayed the Islanders the whole game. I think they had a lot more high opportunity chances, whereas the Islanders had 1 or 2 or 3 good chances that Comrie had to come up with, but I think Varlamov had to come up with a lot more solid saves, and I think the Sabres were really taking it to him for pretty much the whole game. I don't really think the Islanders took over the game at any point. I mean, you still need Comrie to come up with those saves, like you mentioned. Getting a shutout is still massive. I mean, essentially winning the game pretty much 1-0, and even that goal coming, I believe, 6 minutes left in the third. So it wasn't even like you scored early and you were just hanging on to that lead. You scored extremely late, but like you said, they changed their complete style of play to play like the Islanders do and beat them at their own game, which was just really great to see. And Middlestat, I thought, had a really good game against the Islanders. I thought he created a lot of offensive opportunities. Sadly, it didn't really result in much, but I thought he looked really good, and I thought he looked a little bit more like the player that the Sabres were kind of hoping they were getting this entire time, but I thought he has slowly come back alive as this season has, moved forward. I think his development is moving once again. I think he's just turning into a bit of a player that they can hopefully rely on as a solid third line player, whereas someone like Olofsson is just all but vanished, as has some of the other players on this team. But it's good to see a player like Middlestat, who you and I kind of left for dead, kind of showing a little bit of spark and a little bit of fight, and really coming along strong at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. I think he's a third line player for this team moving forward, and if you can get him back after this year, I think he's got one more year, like 2 point something left on his deal, but bringing him back, third line winger, great, love it. But it's a weird feeling here, Phil, to be back excited for games again. Maybe Levi, because our next
that's the other huge question, though. If
Montreal,
you think you have
home,
a chance for playoffs, do you throw your rookie to the wolves if you have any chance or inkling that you might make playoffs? Do you really throw that away? I mean, I'm not saying Levi's going to come in here and blow the game off, but it's his first NHL start. Do you really allow him into this situation where you might have an opportunity to make playoffs? Do you really just give it to him no matter what, or do you kind of let him wait until if you lose a couple more and you really think, okay, there's no way, then you let him play?
Right, that's my thinking now. Is going into Friday's game, I was like, yeah, Levi's going to get the Monday start. Montreal, he grew up loving Carey Price. He grew up rooting for Montreal. Home game versus a team that's lower in the standings, only got 64 points.
On the 27th.
Yeah, this is the game that you would throw him out at. And then they won back-to-back games and are back in the playoff match. And now do you still toss out your guy that just signed 2 weeks ago versus a team in a must-win game? I think our mindset has changed, and I think the Sabres mindset might have also changed as well, but we won't know that until after the morning skate, and probably not even until the right before game time. So, but Phil, BSC update, I put up 21, you put up 11.5. Are you making any changes to your team?
Still just screwed, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much, Phil. Yeah. But we knew that once you drafted your team.
Wow, that's not. Come on.
I have to throw in a shot every once in a while. It's been too positive of a show.
That's fair. No, I don't. I can't. There's nothing I can really do to help this team out. Wait, do you? Who's your forwards? Who you got?
I got Tuck, Cousins, and Quinn.
Tuck, Cousins, Quinn, Tage, Skinner,
and you got Middlestat as your third.
Yeah, there's just no one else that is shining bright. Yeah, I'll stay.
Nobody consistent.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I will also hang out with my Dahlin and Stillman as well. Stillman has not done much that I was hoping for, but he's the third pairing defenseman. I wasn't expecting much. So wild card watch here. We can actually talk about it again. New York Islanders, 74 games played, 83 points. They got New Jersey on Monday and Washington on Wednesday. 2 huge matchups for them. Pittsburgh, 73 games played, 82 points. They got Detroit on Tuesday. Florida, third place, 73 games played, 79 points. Monday versus Ottawa, Wednesday versus Toronto. Buffalo sitting in fourth. They have games in hand, 72 games played, 76 points. So they got 1 game in hand over Florida and Pittsburgh, 2 over New York Islanders. Phil, they're still alive. They got 20 points left on the table. They can get up to 96, but Florida can get up to 97. Pittsburgh can still get up to 100, and New York Islanders can still get up to 99. But the teams that are below them have 92 and 93 max. in point total. Washington is right below them, tied with 76 points, 74 games played. They got New York Islanders on Wednesday, and then Ottawa rolls into Florida on Monday, 73 games played, 75 points. Still alive somehow with 10 games to go. 4 at home, 6 away.
I mean, it's exciting. It's exactly what we wanted their season to be. Again, we're getting our hopes way too high because we are beyond over this drought of no playoffs. But at the same time, 10 games left, you're still in the hunt. You're still there. It's, it's not mathematically impossible. It's not even a extreme hope or anything. I mean, it's there. You're in it. You got to probably win most of your games, if not win out for, you definitely need some help outside of that. But the fact that there are 10 games left and they are still in it, that's pretty much all we wanted from this season, all we could ask for, and they're doing it.
Just no more giant losses and giant losing streaks. Just finish, even at worst, 6-4, 7-3, have a winning record down the stretch, and you will cap off the season as success. Whether you make the playoffs or not, if you go out and go 3-7 down the stretch, 2-8 down the stretch, that will change my mindset for the last 20 games. But if you finish this with a winning record and, finish ahead of Washington and Ottawa, which is what I was calling for last show, while you were calling for tank, I'm just going to toss that out there. But yeah, it's
still want it.
I'm just hoping they stay in the race and competitive to make it more interesting to watch these games the rest of the way. But Phil, final segment here. We have to crown our weekly MVP, and there were some nominees for hockey. But I think when you win in overtime once again, and I think we've started this as a tradition, when you win in overtime, you have to be crowned the BSC Weekly MVP. That goes to Steve Priolo. Not only did he have the game-winning OT on a caused turnover pick, go down there and just bounce it past Gigliano. He had 13 loose balls. He had 3 block shots and 2 caused turnovers. Just an unbelievable performance for a guy that's been leading this team all season long, who's been leading this team for years and years now. Well deserved. I know you didn't get the belt in San Diego, but you got the game ball and you got the weekly BSC MVP.
Yeah, he played obviously as the team's captain, as the leader on defense. He held the lead in pretty much every statistical defensive standpoint you possibly could, and then, just snuck in a nice little tidy overtime winner. I do love that you keep calling him Squigliano, even though that is not his name. I mean, every time you say it, I want to say like Squiggly is what I'm immediately thinking of. Squigliano is maybe what his new BSC nickname's going to be.
Squiggy.
And we do understand how to say Chiliano pronounce, we know what his actual pronunciation is. I guess we're just refusing to call it correctly. So Squigliano is his name, and it was a good bounce shot. I mean, when he was running down there, I was really hoping they would do something on transition, either pass it or shoot it, just kind of go and take it, and he ran forward, and he was like, you know what, I'm going to get my 3rd goal of the entire season. Let's get home. We've had enough of this West Coast trip, and there they are. Away they went.
Nice pick play by Nick Weiss, too, who gave him a bit of a lane there. He was the one right in front of leading the charge, yeah. But Phil, anything else you want to add to this one before we shut it down for another wonderful, fabulous work week?
No, I think we're good to close it down.
All right, perfect. This is one of our shorter episodes, and I love it because now I'll be able to edit it really quickly. So on our next show, we got one Sabres game to talk about. I apologize. The Montreal game. Wonder if Devin Levi will be making his first NHL appearance, or will they continue with the goaltenders that are on hand right now? We will also preview the biggest game in Buffalo Bandits season right now versus the Toronto Rock. It's going to be a electric game out in Hamilton. See, even Toronto doesn't like you, even though I called them to make the finals. But we can scratch that. I'll scratch that, Phil. It's going to be a very loaded next episode, and we might even toss in some Isabel Cup talk because they are playing at 9 o'clock and they still got an hour until face-off because they're playing in Arizona, which I was very upset about as well. But thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com to see Phil's weekly breakdown of the teams and his hot corner of the ref's hot corner. Ref's corner. Not even hot. That's my segment.
It's cold. It's after the game. Cold corner.
It's bold after the game. There you go. It's bold lettering. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.